you something very amazing. All right, I'm going to be showing you how professional traders actually trade with how new traders actually look at the charts and what makes the difference. How is it that a professional trader is able to make profits out of the markets consistently, and then a new trader, someone who's not traded for quite a while or has not traded for a long time, how they get to see the markets. Now, the thing is this: when you get into the market, when you start trading, in many cases, you learn about support and you learn about resistance. All right, that is one of the things that many new traders come to know. All right, support and resistance is such a beautiful way or basic of trading. So learning support and resistance is just the basics, but all of your trading decisions should not just be completely based on support and resistance zones for many reasons. All right, so if you have not followed my YouTube channel, please do so. I'm going to be explaining some of the reasons in my coming videos. All right, so we see this is a support area. Market respected those areas quite well. All right, so market respected those areas quite well, and then we see that there is a bounce off that zone. There is a bounce off that zone. So a person who is new into trading would most likely be expecting a push to this upside. All right, and probably the market keeps on bouncing off that zone like that. All right, and then bounce again to that side, and then bounce again to the downside. So they expect those kinds of bounces always and every time. Now, it is not bad in itself. Okay, expecting such kinds of bounces is not necessarily bad in itself, but you need to understand the reason why that bouncing occurs. All right, you don't just want to take the trade because, oh, I see a support or I see a resistance zone, let me take the trade there. I see a support zone, let me take the trade there. It is not always the best thing to do. All right, now you might be expecting to take a buy at that point as a trader who is new to trading. All right, so mind you, this is the 4-hour time frame, and so you might be looking forward to taking a trade right there with a risk reward ratio of 1 to 2, and truly your trade can come out well. I at no point tell people that your trade is a wrong trade. There is no wrong trade. All right, if I take a trade and the trade goes in my favor, does not necessarily make the trade a good trade. If you take a trade and the trade does not go in your favor, does not necessarily make that trade a bad trade. All right, so trades are based on your own trading plan. If I see a trade that suits my trading plan, then I can take that trade. All right, so I can decide to take a buy at that point, and maybe I take a buy up until this point right there, and then I can give my reasons and say, all right, I have a resistance zone where the market most likely will get to, and that's a valid reason. All right, but the only problem now is that if you look towards uh, if you look at the bigger time frame, let's go, this is the 4-hour time frame, let's go to the daily time frame. Let's go to the daily time frame right now. All right, so from the daily time frame, you notice if you want to draw this, okay, let's go to the weekly time frame. All right, so from the weekly time frame, we see something quite different. So from the weekly time frame, what we notice is a trend line. Now, this is funny because the higher time frame is very important when you are analyzing the trades, your trades. So we see that the market got to that point, we bounce back down there. Let's make it a little large. So we noticed that the market got to that point right there. We bounced down, got there, bounced down, got to this point, bounced down. Now we are at this point. We seem to have been able to break out from that area quite slightly, but we noticed that we pushed back in. So now that we push back into that trend line, we most likely will be looking for a push towards the downside, right? So most likely looking for a push towards the downside like that. Okay, so we have areas where the market most likely will get to. We have this large support area where the market could get into. Meanwhile, there's still a tendency for us to break out from that zone to the upside. But seeing that we have gotten into that trend line at this point, I wouldn't be looking for opportunities to buy. I'll be looking for opportunities to sell instead. This is why the trend line, the higher time frame is quite important. All right, we see that we are in a very strong bearish movement. So I'm not necessarily interested in taking any buys. All right, so someone who is trading from the 4 hour time frame alone without looking from the higher time frame will not pay attention to all of those things I've made mention of. Instead, they are looking for support and resistance from the 4 hour time frame and not paying attention to what is happening on the higher time frame. So in that case, I want to negate any opportunity to buy. Now, even though that we have a support zone, we have a support zone here, I would not be looking for to buy any trade at that point. So I want to look for a push to the downside instead. So I'll be looking for opportunities to go down instead. So what will be my idea towards taking a trade to the downside on this particular trade? So I have a trend line right there, which is quite important too. And what else do I look for? Let me get this out. I have I think this place looks to me like a good support area too. We already drew that. Now, remember, we drew this before looking for opportunities to buy towards that side, but I'm no longer interested in opportunities to buy. I'm looking for opportunities to sell instead. So, what do I do? Let me make this a little bigger so you can see very well. All right, so we have very wonderful areas. We also have areas right here that acts as a resistance zone. So the most likely we have the market push up towards that side. We have a resistance right there. We also have a resistance right there. We also have a resistance right there. So if I wanted to take a trade, or if I want to take a trade, I would look forward to taking a trade and putting my stop loss above one or more of these resistance areas. So what do I look forward for? I have a very large order block right there. Now that I've gotten my area where I'm looking forward for a push to, so in this case, I'm looking forward for a push to the downside. So I want to look for an opportunity to push downwards. So I have liquidity resting right there. Most people have sold into that point, have sold into that area. So people have been selling, and most people are still selling and hoping that the market pushes to the downside. But I'm not interested in taking a trade here because we have so many areas here that has not been covered yet, and there's a tendency for us to push into that zone. So since we have a trend line right here, we most likely would be pushing upwards to that point. Now, this is the current market condition. We could be pushing towards that zone and then probably dropping down. Now, the reason why I said this has the tendency of taking place is because we have this point here as a resistance. We have this point as a resistance. So most people, once the market gets into that zone, they are looking forward to also selling at that point. And you would expect people to do this, taking a short position right there, and then their stop losses should be somewhere around here above that zone. All right, and then they are looking forward to taking a risk reward ratio of 1 to 3. So once they sell at that point, the market most likely could take them out and start pushing towards the downside. So you want to think like a professional trader instead of just trading randomly because you saw in some textbook or you saw online that once the market gets to a resistance zone, you want to sell. So you want to avoid the kind of thinking that is common to many people. So I was looking forward for, since we have a fair value gap right there, and the market has a tendency of taking out liquidity towards areas of interest. Fair value gap is a beautiful space for me to take a trade. So I'll be looking forward to taking a trade somewhere around here. So I could take a short position right there, maybe in the middle of that fair value gap, and then I want my stop loss to be somewhere above that area. Now, the reason why I want my stop loss to be above that area, somewhere around here, you remember I'm taking a swing trading. This is swing trading, so I have a support around here. So this is support, and I have my reasons for actually taking the trade somewhere around here. So I'm not just taking that trade blindly. And my stop loss is above that zone because there's still a tendency for us to push higher. Sorry, there's still a tendency for us to push higher from here to that point, all right, to get into this area. In that case, this becomes trend line liquidity. So most people looking forward to sell at that point could be stopped out, and then the market push to the downside. So this is what I'll be looking forward for. And then my target usually is a risk reward ratio of 1 to 3. So this is a very simple way how I look at the market. I'm not just taking a trade because I have a support or a resistance area. I want to also pay attention to the many factors that could make me lose out on that trade. Because as a trader, what is most important to you is your ability to manage your capital and not just have unnecessary losses that you could have avoided by taking your time to actually understudy what is going on in the market and what is likely going to take place in the market. I hope you have been able to understand something very um, complicated. This has made a lot of people lose money in the market, and they keep on regretting why they took a trade or why they did not take a trade because of just this simple thing that I've made known to you. So I want you to go to your own charts and then find out, are there areas that you could have been stopped out before now that you wouldn't have been stopped out if you had this knowledge. All right, so if you have not followed this channel, if you have not subscribed to this channel, do well to do so, and you will be getting wonderful and amazing content just like this in the coming days. All right, thank you so much for your support, and I really appreciate you watching up until the very end. I'll see you tomorrow.